Rizzo.
There are talks, ongoing calls about the availability.
The Cleveland Browns front office is actively shopping Shedeur Sanders. Let that land for a second. The rookie quarterback they drafted, the player their own fan base has been rallying behind since the moment his name was called, is reportedly available via trade, and the signal is coming directly from inside the organization, not from a rumor mill, not from a disgruntled fan account, from inside the building. Welcome back. This is hot news, and today we are ripping the doors completely off the Cleveland Browns quarterback disaster, exposing the deliberate, calculated, and absolutely brutal way this franchise is setting up Shedeur Sanders to fail, while simultaneously handing the keys back to Deshaun Watson. I need every single person watching this video to sit with what is actually happening here, because if you process it clearly, without the noise, without the spin, without the Cleveland front office's carefully managed talking points, the picture that emerges is not complicated, it is ruthless. It is baffling, and it is one of the most glaring acts of organizational self-destruction we have seen from an NFL franchise in years. Let me walk you through it piece by piece, because the details matter enormously here, and the establishment absolutely does not want you looking at all of them at the same time. The bomb dropped from Tony Rizzo, who covers the Browns locally and has been, and I want to be precise about this, the single most vocal public supporter of Shedeur Sanders that Cleveland media has produced, the #1 cheerleader. The guy who has been loudly, repeatedly on record saying he wants Shedeur Sanders to start for this team this season. That man went on air and reported that there are ongoing calls, active conversations about Shedeur Sanders' availability as a trade asset, ongoing calls about availability. Now I want you to think about what that actually means, because there are only two explanations and neither one is good for the Browns. Either Rizzo has been directly told by someone inside the Cleveland Browns organization that they are receiving trade inquiries and actively engaging in those conversations, or someone inside that same organization has told Rizzo to put it out there, to float it publicly, to send a signal through the media that Shedeur Sanders is available. Those are the only two options, and both of them point to the same undeniable conclusion. The Cleveland Browns front office has decided, quietly and deliberately, that Shedeur Sanders is not their guy. They have decided this. And they are using the media to communicate it, the way franchises always do when they want to move a player without having to face the cameras directly and say it out loud. This is how the old guard operates. This is the conversation the NFL press infrastructure refuses to have plainly. Organizations do not announce trades before they happen. They leak, they float, they send signals. And when Tony Rizzo, the man who has been Shedeur's loudest defender in that market, is the one carrying the signal, you have to understand the weight of that. He is not making this up. He has no incentive to manufacture a story that undermines the player he has publicly championed. He heard something real, something that came directly from the Cleveland Browns organization. And on the exact same day that Rizzo dropped this, Chad Johnson Ochocinco himself went on record and said it plainly. Deshaun Watson is the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Not might be, not is in competition, is the starter. And Chad Johnson added that Watson has 6 weeks to prove this team can perform above expectations, or the job is his to lose. But notice the framing. The job is Watson's to lose, not Shedeur's to win, Watson's to lose. That is a catastrophic distinction for Shedeur Sanders and every single person in his corner. Let me give you the full picture of what Deshaun Watson has looked like in camp, because this is where the story becomes truly baffling. Zach Jackson from The Athletic reported on Watson's camp performance, and his assessment was not encouraging. Watson has flashed the best throws of camp, genuine moments of elite-level execution, and then immediately followed them with some of the worst throws you will ever see from a professional quarterback, not inconsistent by a small margin. The full range, from the top of the league to the bottom of it, sometimes within the same practice session. And Jackson's conclusion was blunt. After 4 years of watching this, Watson is the same player he has always been here, inconsistent, inaccurate, prone to catastrophic decision-making. Not any good, to use the exact framing from that report. Not any good. Let that sink in. Not any good. That is the assessment from a respected beat reporter covering a new offense, a new environment, a situation that was supposed to represent a fresh start for Watson. And after all of that, after all of the optimism, all of the new system, new chance narrative, the conclusion is that he is the same player. He is not taking a next step. He is not evolving. He is exactly what 4 years of evidence said he was. And yet the Cleveland Browns are reportedly planning to hand him the starting job, and they are reportedly entertaining trade calls for the rookie who by all accounts has been closing the gap in that quarterback competition. Think about that sequence. Watson is performing inconsistently, inaccurately, and without improvement. Shedeur Sanders is reportedly closing the gap on a player who has been in the league for years and has had the full benefit of an established professional infrastructure. Shedeur is closing the gap, and the organization's response is to signal that Shedeur is available for trade. This is not a football decision. I want to be entirely clear with you about that. No franchise makes a football decision that looks like this. You do not draft a quarterback, watch him compete at a level that closes the gap on your incumbent starter, and then shop him to other teams while handing the job to the incumbent. That is not how you build a winning football team. That is how you protect a sunk cost. That is how you avoid the embarrassment of admitting that the massive, unprecedented contract you gave Deshaun Watson was a mistake of historic proportions. The Cleveland Browns front office, and Jimmy Haslam specifically, cannot bring themselves to make the clean football decision because the clean football decision exposes the magnitude of their error. So instead, they are trying to manufacture a scenario where Shedeur Sanders disappears from the building before the question becomes unavoidable. And here is the layer underneath that layer, because this story goes even deeper. Reports suggest the Browns are also planning to draft another quarterback, either in the supplemental draft or in the next full draft cycle. And the thinking, which is almost too cynical to say out loud, is that Watson might be able to lose enough games to position the team for the draft pick they actually want. Let me say that again so it registers completely. The working theory is that the Browns are comfortable with Watson starting because Watson losing games gets them closer to the draft position they need to start over. They are not building to win, they are engineering a losing record with Deshaun Watson as the instrument of that loss. And Shedeur Sanders, a young quarterback who has done nothing wrong, who has competed, who has reportedly closed the gap, is being removed from the equation entirely so he cannot accidentally win games and disrupt the tank. That is the conversation the establishment does not want you having. That is the part of this story that the press release skips. The Browns are not evaluating Shedeur Sanders, they are discarding him, and they are doing it while hiding behind the language of a quarterback competition that by every available signal was never going to be a real competition at all. Now let's talk about Deshaun Sanders for a moment, because his voice has entered this story in a way that matters. Deshaun went public with criticism directed at the Browns, specifically calling out the offensive line and the wide receiver group surrounding Shedeur. He said his son needs help. He said the infrastructure is not there, and he is right. He is factually, demonstrably correct. But here is the brutal reality of that situation. You cannot say it out loud. You cannot, as the father of a rookie quarterback who is trying to survive a political quarterback battle inside a dysfunctional organization, go public and criticize the teammates and the supporting cast, even when it is true, even when every person watching can see it. Because the moment you do that, you hand the front office a narrative, you give them a reason to say the situation is untenable, you give Jimmy Haslam cover to say that the environment around Shedeur Sanders is too complicated, too loud, too high profile to manage. And then the trade rumors become easier to justify. That is the trap. The Browns front office created the conditions that make Shedeur Sanders difficult to start. A broken offensive line, a receiver group that needs work, an incumbent starter who is being handed the job regardless of performance, and then when Deshaun Sanders reacts to those conditions publicly, the organization uses that reaction as further justification for moving Shedeur out. It is a ruthless, deliberate, and absolutely surgical political operation, and Shedeur Sanders is the one paying the price for it. There is also the matter of what a trade would actually mean for Shedeur as a destination. Fans have been floating the New York Jets. And look, I understand the impulse. Get him out of Cleveland, get him somewhere he can actually play. But the Jets are where quarterback careers go to stall. We have watched that franchise chew through signal callers for years. The Geno Smith story is instructive precisely because Geno had to leave New York to become the quarterback everyone could see he was capable of being. He went to Seattle and rebuilt everything. The lesson is not that the Jets are a launching pad. The lesson is that some organizations are so broken that a talented quarterback cannot survive them, and the only path forward is escape. The question for Shedeur Sanders is not whether he should be traded, the question is where. Because if the Browns are genuinely going to hand this job to Deshaun Watson, who by The Athletic's own reporting is not any good and is not going to take a next step, then yes, a trade that puts Shedeur in a functional organization, with a coaching staff that actually wants to develop him, with a front office that is not actively trying to protect a catastrophic contract mistake, would be the best possible outcome for Shedeur's career. Not because Cleveland has failed him, because the Cleveland Browns front office, and Jimmy Haslam specifically, made a decision that had nothing to do with football and everything to do with politics and money and ego. I have been watching this situation develop, and I am going to put my name on this directly. The Cleveland Browns will not have 4 quarterbacks in training camp when July 28th arrives. Shedeur Sanders will either be traded before that date, or the competition will be so clearly tilted toward Watson that the outcome will be obvious to everyone watching. Jimmy Haslam is going to protect Deshaun Watson's starting job because the alternative is admitting the contract was indefensible. The Browns coaching staff under Kevin Stefanski, under the current regime, is going to play Watson and lose games and call it a rebuild. And Shedeur Sanders, if he stays in Cleveland, will be managed into irrelevance by an organization that never had any intention of giving him a genuine shot. If I am wrong, come back here and roast me in the comments. I want the receipts. But I am not wrong. The signals are too clear. The pattern is too clean. The same day the Cleveland media reports Shedeur is on the trade market, multiple sources confirm Watson has the starting job. That is not a coincidence. That is a coordinated message from an organization that has already made its decision and is now managing the optics of announcing it. And here is what makes this genuinely outrageous: beyond the football, beyond the roster decisions, beyond the draft strategy, Shedeur Sanders competed. He showed up. He closed the gap on a player who has been in the league for years, in a new system, in a new environment, against a front office that was never fully in his corner. He did the work. And the reward for doing the work is being shopped to other teams, while the incumbent who the Athletic says is not any good gets handed the starting job. That is the reality. That is what is happening in Cleveland right now. And the establishment wants you to process it as a normal football decision. It is not. It is a catastrophic, soul-crushing failure of organizational integrity. Shedeur Sanders deserves to play for a franchise that wants to see what he can actually do. Wherever that is, and the Cowboys angle that is floating out there, given Jerry Jones's history with high-profile gambles and his relationship with Deion Sanders, is genuinely worth watching. Wherever that landing spot turns out to be, it will be better than staying in Cleveland and watching Deshaun Watson lose games on purpose. Drop your most honest take in the comments right now. Is the Cleveland Browns front office actively tanking with Deshaun Watson to protect a sunk cost and get a better draft pick? Yes or no? One line? Commit to a side. I want every opinion that is willing to say it plainly, because the conversation TV refuses to have is happening right here. Hit the notification bell because this situation is unraveling fast, and the next move from Jimmy Haslam and the Browns front office is going to tell us everything we need to know about whether this franchise is serious about winning or serious about covering its own mistakes. We will see you in the next video.
He's been here, which is an inconsistent player, not accurate, bad decisions. He's just not any good. And there's no point in the Cleveland Browns of 2026 who are playing for the future playing him. I think and I hope that they're starting to come around to that thought. But he's just not ever going to take that next step.
Wow, it must be a slow day pulling anything from your ass. I'm telling you, this came directly from the Cleveland Browns organization. He has heard something. Rizzo.
There are talks, ongoing calls about the availability.
He's been here, which is an inconsistent player, not accurate, bad decisions. He's just not any good. And there's no point in the Cleveland Browns of 2026 who are playing for the future playing him. I think and I hope that they're starting to come around to that thought. But he's just not ever going to take that next step.
Wow, it must be a slow day pulling anything from your ass. I'm telling you, this came directly from the Cleveland Browns organization. He has heard something.